You are playing Marvel Rivals. You're queuing solo and even with your friends. You get on and you win a couple games and everything is going great. Until you start losing games. And before you know it, you're getting completely rolled. You can't even walk out of spawn. You've lost 100 elo already. And you just keep queuing and raging at your teammates until your mom or dad comes in and yells at you for being too loud. Well, good thing you've got me. Because I am going to help you go from not knowing at all why you are losing to becoming an analytical genius. By the end of this, you will be able to identify why you are winning or losing and help your team win almost every game and climb the ranks. And I believe this will help you whether you're a beginner or you're like Plat or something. If you're GM, you probably don't need this, but we will explain this all in 4 simple parts, starting with the first one. One of the most important things to know, and the first thing you should learn, is where you fit into your team and where your enemies fit into theirs. And I think the reason for that is pretty obvious. So we are going to dive into 2 starter playstyles to understand at a basic level, those being offensive and defensive. Offensive players are going to be setting up key kills for your team, or just killing key players on the enemy team by themselves. Players that are offensive usually will play characters like Magic, Spider-Man, Black Panther, or maybe Thor or Venom if they're playing tank. These kind of players are crucial, and if you don't have a good one on your team, it can be very easy to get stomped. Now that you know the role of offensive players, let's cover defensive. Defensive players are going to defend key players on your team instead of attacking key players on the other team.
Nice.
Now this can look a lot more complicated than it sounds, but at the most basic level, tanks are going to be defensive and DPS players are going to be offensive. But it can look a lot different than that. Now that we understand the different kind of playstyles, let's go over the 3 different roles and their jobs for the team at a basic level. First, we have vanguards or tanks. These types of players are going to create space for the team to work with, as well as take all the major damage and protect the key players on your team. This role is probably one of the easiest to pick up, but can still be extremely hard to play correctly, as there are many things to pay attention to, and when you don't, your whole team will fall apart. In my opinion, it's not the most important, but it's for sure a lot easier to win if you have a good one. Tips to play this role are going to be paying attention to pings that healers and teammates give at who to shoot at, constantly pay attention to your healers so that they don't die, and push on a site in a way that will allow your team to follow and give them space to pick off players in the enemy team. Unfortunately, I can't give an in-depth guide on how to play offensive and defensive as a tank right now, but let me know if you would like one down below. Now that tank is covered, let's move on to duelist or DPS. This role is usually more offensive, but certain characters like Namor or Hawkeye have kits tailored more towards defense as well. This role is mostly going to focus on picking off the enemy backline one by one, making the other team fall like dominoes. Your main job in this role is to get healers or other annoying DPS doing too good out of the way so that your teammates can easily kill off the enemy team. Playing weird angles and just being a complete nuisance is going to help a lot more than you think. Even if you're not killing off the healers, if they're attacking you, they usually can't heal their teammates at the same time, which allows your tanks or other DPS to get picks. Same thing with tanks. Now lastly, let's dive into the support role. These players' main job is to stay alive as well as to keep their other teammates alive. They can obviously contribute to attack, but your main jobs are going to be timing ultimates correctly and keeping as many teammates alive for as long as possible, as well as healing the right people at the right times. And if you're playing a character like Luna Snow or Invisible Woman, it might be shutting down ultimates. This may look like letting some of your teammates die every once in a while, but it all comes down to judgment calls. In this role, you are going to be the complete cornerstone of your team, so you have to play it well. And that's all of the roles and playstyles briefly explained. Now that we understand that, let's dive into team structures and how to break them down. Team structures can look completely different every game, and that's part of what makes Marvel Rivals so unique. In this section, we're going to dive into what a team structure looks like, the most common team structures in Season 1, and the best ways to break them down. Starting with what a team structure looks like. A team structure is going to be composed of 3 core components: a front line, a back line, and divers. These components and how you use them are what makes and breaks a game. We'll go over all of these more in depth one by one so you have a deeper understanding of them and can pinpoint what the issues are in your games. Starting with a front line. These players are going to be the ones between your team and the enemy team. They are the ones in the trenches, taking all the damage and looking for picks. Frontliners are usually tanks, but they can be supported on the front line by a Bucky or other similar DPS. Next, let's talk about the back line. The backline is usually composed of your healers and DPS. These players are going to be looking for pick opportunities while playing a more passive or defensive role. They are looking to keep teammates alive and shut down big plays and flanks from the enemy team. Lastly, we have divers. These players are trying to distract or eliminate the backline to allow the front line to be picked off and win team fights. But diving is an art that is hard to master, and a bad diver can be easily countered and destroyed. Now that we understand the team composition, let's talk about some common teams we see in Season 1 and different ways to counter them. In lower ranks, a common team I see is 2 dive tanks, 2 supports, and a diving DPS, and any other DPS. These teams dominate low ranks because people struggle to keep their backline alive and tend to play more individual and spread out. The way to counter this team if you are struggling is to play tight and keep your frontline and backline closer together, as well as play anti-dive characters like Magneto, Namor, Mantis, and Luna Snow. Playing tight and closer together as well as playing anti-dive picks is an easy way to pick off those divers in your backline and destroy the enemy team one by one once those divers are gone. Just be careful in the case of a Groot or a Moon Knight switch. Another team I'd like to go over would be the triple support, which is very popular right now. There are a lot of counters to this comp, but I think the best way to counter triple support is to have 1 dive tank, 3 DPS, and 2 healers. Captain America is going to be a great pick for a dive tank since he can reflect all of the anti-dive right back onto the healers, distract the healers, and get out when he is taking too much damage. But Venom is a fine pick as well. As for your DPS, your main goal is going to be to shred tanks. Characters like Squirrel Girl and Bucky are perfect for this. And for your supports, just play a basic role, but keep 2 support ultimates handy. Don't play Rocket, Jeff, or Adam Warlock against a triple support team. Doing that, you're just asking to lose. With this comp, you are going to shut down triple support with Cap or Venom diving the backline and constantly pulling in or stunning tanks. They're going to be getting completely shredded or distracted. If the tanks turn around, they're going to be taking an overwhelming amount of damage from all those DPS, and you'll pick off their tanks with a well-timed dive matched with a team targeting 1 tank at a time. As for the support ultimates, you just have to try to stay alive for as long as possible. If the support ultimates are coming out at the perfect time and completely countering your team, you may consider switching to characters like Magneto and maybe Hawkeye to counter those support ultimates. But I hope you guys understand team comps now and can identify where your problems are better when losing games and talk to your team accordingly. It's important to adapt sooner rather than later, so pay close attention to strategy when playing Marvel Rivals. And send this video to a teammate who's throwing your comp games due to not understanding team compositions and Marvel Rivals strategy. Get out there, get picks, and win those 6v5 fights. Thank you guys, and good luck on your ranked games.